Moshe. Okay, as we mentioned, we're going to start today the dinim of Purim, because we have basically tonight and Sunday night. Okay, very quickly, the dinim of Tainus Esther. Tainus Esther. What was it, Purim? Okay, Tainus Esther is because the Jews gathered when there was a fighting going on in the time of Haman, and the Gemara says that probably, or the Rambam says, probably the Jews at that time would be defined by Amalek. When the Jews were fighting a battle, Moshe, Aaron, and Hur went up and they were fasting, so the Jews that stayed behind fasted. So therefore, we can assume that the Jews fasted on the 13th of Adar because that's when the people were fighting. As we mentioned every year, the Rebbe explains an interesting reason why it's called Tainus Esther. Why is it called Tainus Esther? Esther's fast that she originated was 3 days before Pesach. 2 days before Pesach. Why do we call it Tainus Esther? And the Rebbe explains very simply. There's a din that people that go to war, the soldiers, are not allowed to fast because they need to be strong. Who fasts? The people that stay home, they're the ones that fast because they're not fighting. In the days of Purim, the Gzeir of Haman, the decree of Haman was on men, women, and children, everybody. So if the Megaz was on men, women, and children, and everybody, so then everybody was fighting. So every Jew was fighting, men, women, and children. So there was only one person that didn't have to fast, Jew, Esther. She was safe in the palace. So she was the only one that fasted, so therefore it's one of the reasons why it's called Tainus Esther, because she was the only one that fasted. Okay, here in LA, the fast begins at
5:57.
5:57, yeah, 5:57 in the morning.
Not in the morning.
5:57, before 6 o'clock. Okay, anyway, so therefore it's not a very strict fast because it's not mentioned in Tanakh as an official fast. Nevertheless, people that are healthy should fast. Pregnant, nursing, or women that have children under 2 years old don't have to fast. But like this, they would have to fast. So in the morning there's Torah reading, there's slichas, there's the whole thing. Before mincha, the custom is to give half a shekel, machzus a shekel. Why? Because there are three, in the time of the Beis HaMikdash, in the month of Adar, people would have to give a half a shekel. There are two purposes of the half a shekel. Number one, you're not allowed to count people. That's when you count them in, you use a pasuk or something. But you're not allowed to count people. So how did they count the Jews? How did they take a census? So every Jew over 20 gave a half a shekel. Everybody gave the same, no more or less. The rich man cannot give more, the Torah says the poor man cannot give less. Everybody gave a half a shekel, and therefore they knew how many Jews there were. What did they do with this money? They bought the daily korbanos that were bought twice a day, the korban tamid, all the korbanos that they brought to the Beis HaMikdash was bought from that money, which meant, the Gemara says, that every single Jew had a part of the daily sacrifice because they all participated with the half a shekel. So therefore, customary to that, the minhag is before mincha, you give $0.50. So again, it has to be a currency which is half of that currency. In other words, in America it's $1, so you can't give, by the way, 2 quarters. You have to give a 50-cent piece. In Israel, it's a shekel, so you have to give a half a shekel coin. You can't give 2/4 of a shekels. In Europe, it would be a euro. In other places, it would be a pound. Whatever, in Mexico, it would be pesos. So you give a half a peso. But it has to be a currency that is a half on it. It means it's not 2/4. Okay, so therefore you give half a shekel before mincha. Some people have a discussion, halacha, like for instance, are women obligated into, because in the time of the Mishkan Beis HaMikdash, women didn't have to give the shkolim. They didn't have to give. But the Pearl Armin and Chabad minig is that the Frierdiker Rebbe used to give for the wife and kids. Once you start giving for them, every year you have to give. Now you don't have to give once they become adults, they can give themselves. But once you give for them, they always have to be giving the machzus shekel. Tainus Esther in the morning, you have long slichas, like we said, you have Avinu Malkeinu, and Tachnun and Avinu Malkeinu. At Mincha Tainus Esther, we don't say Tachnun, because it's already out of Purim. If Purim is Sunday, and then you push up the fast to Thursday before, so then Thursday Tainus Esther at Mincha, you would say Tachnun and Avinu Malkeinu. But because, like this year, Purim is Tuesday, so this is Monday afternoon, So then there's no Tachnun, no Avinu Malkeinu, because we don't say Tachnun. Okay, that's as far as that goes briefly. Now, the night of Purim. B'chlaus brought down Shulchan Aruch, he's supposed to wear Shabbos clothing on Purim. It's a mamish Yom Tif. In fact, as we're learning in Chassidus, it's even a higher Yom Tif than Pesach, Shavuos, and Sukkot. It's going to be, all the other Yom Tif are going to be bottled, which we learned what that means in Chassidus. It doesn't mean, God forbid, it won't be. But the Arizal writes, we mentioned this in the classes, the Arizal writes that Yom Kippurim, Yom Kippur, is Kippurim. That means Yom Kippur is Kippurim. Purim is even greater than Yom Kippur. Yom Kippur is like Purim. There's a lot of similarities in Inyan between Yom Kippur and Purim. What are the connections? A bunch of connections. Number one, Matan Torah, they got the first set of luchos. Yom Kippur, they got the second set of luchos. So basically it was Matan Torah on the second luchos. What happened on Purim? The Jews re-accepted what they began at the time of Matan Torah. So therefore Purim is the willingness of accepting the Torah. So therefore it's similar in that respect to Yom Kippur. What did they do on Yom Kippur in the Beis HaMikdash? They cast lots. There were two goats. One went as the Soyer Hashem as a korban, and one was thrown off the cliff, Lazazel. What happened on Purim? Why is the Yom Tov called Purim? People poured her agayel because Haman cast lots. So Purim is a level of lots. Yom Kippur is a level of lots, and Purim is lots. In addition to that, Purim is a level of, there's no mention of Hashem in the Megillah. Hashem's name is not mentioned. It's a lot of acronyms and meanings of it, but there's no actual name of Hashem in the Megillah. So why is it that there is no name of Hashem mentioned in Megillah? So in the revealed part of Torah it says, because the Goyim, the Persians at that time, were going to make it into a history book, and then people would define Hashem as their God. So Esther and Mordechai, when they wrote the Megillah, left it out. In Chassidus it explains that because Purim, the reason why there's no mention of Hashem in the Megillah is because the Purim is higher than the Yud-Kei Vav-Kei. Just like Yom Kippur, it says, Lifnei Hashem Titaru, higher than Yud-Kei Vav-Kei. What do you mean higher than Hashem? It doesn't mean higher than God. There's Ata, Hashem Elokeinu. Ata is the essence. Hashem is the name of Hashem. So Yom Kippur is the fifth level, which is the essence of the Jew and the essence of Hashem. And Purim is also, there's no mention of Hashem in the Megillah because it's a miracle greater than Yud-Kei Vav-Kei. Why? I don't want to elaborate on, but very briefly, miracle is Yud-Kei Vav-Kei, supernatural. Elokim is nature. Okay? So normal miracles like Kriyas Yamsuf. What did the miracle do? It broke nature. Normally the sea flows. The miracle of Kriyas Yamsuf was, it stopped flowing. So what did the miracle do? It didn't exist with nature. It broke nature. What happened Purim? Chazal tell us it was a nes hamalubish b'teva. It was a miracle dressed in nature. What was the nature? Esther was the queen and Mordechai was the second in command over there, a big, Mishnah Lamelech. So seemingly it was a natural miracle. And Chassidus explains, like we learned this morning, in fact, in Chassidus, no, it was one class, the women's class, that when you have a unity between miracle and nature, even though seemingly they're opposites, is because you tap into a level above both, because nature and miracle are opposites. Therefore, a normal miracle breaks nature, but it doesn't coexist with nature. Purim, miracle and nature coexisted, which means it comes from a level of Hashem, which is higher than Yud-Kei Vav-Kei. Yud-Kei Vav-Kei represents miracles, above time. Elokim represents time and miracle and nature. So what happened on Purim? It's even higher. So there's a lot of similarities between Purim and Yom Kippurim, and therefore that is all right. So Yom Kippurim is Kippurim, like Purim. Okay, so Purim is a very special day. So therefore on Purim you're supposed to wear Big Day Shabbos before the Megillah. When you daven on Purim, you add Alanisim in the Shemona Esrei. If you forgot it and you finish the Shemoneh Esrei, you don't have to repeat it. Okay? Then the night of Purim, you have to read the Megillah. Now, Megillah is a very important mitzvah. The mitzvah of Megillah, the Gemara says, Amar Rabbi Shua ben Levi, you have to read the Megillah twice. Once at night and once during the day. Believe it or not, the day reading, poskim right, is more important than the night reading. Even though everybody comes at night, during the day, whatever. The day reading of the Megillah is even more important than the night reading of the Megillah. So therefore it's like this. When you hear the Megillah, you have to hear every single word. If you miss a word, you're not fulfilling the mitzvah of the Megillah. In fact, they asked now shyness, my cell phone rings in the middle of the Megillah, I didn't turn it off to vibrate. It rings and I become, start looking at the cell phone, I get a little, what's the word? Distracted, good, thank you. Get a little distracted and I missed a word or two. Then you're not Yetzer the Megillah. You have to hear the Megillah from beginning to end, every single word.
Is the mitzvah hearing or reading it?
It's a machlekes in poskim. Okay, many poskim hold men have a mitzvah of reading it, women have a mitzvah of hearing it. Therefore, 1 second. Men, the bracha is al mikra Megillah. Al mikra Megillah means to read the Megillah. Now, by listening to the Megillah, it's like you read it. There's a rule, shomeya ka'ona. Hearing is like saying it. You hear somebody make kiddush. Why are you fulfilling your obligation? Because listening to kiddush is like you said the kiddush. There's a rule, listening to something, answering, it's like saying it itself. There are many opinions that say women don't have a mitzvah of reading the Megillah. They have a mitzvah of listening to the Megillah. And therefore the poskim most poskim said to Pri Chodesh, but most poskim hold that when you read the Megillah for women, if somebody's reading the Megillah for women and they already listened to them, they already heard the Megillah, the women should make the bracha lishmoya Megillah, because by them it's not mikra Megillah. Them the mitzvah is to hear the Megillah. So therefore the din is like this: if you're listening to the Megillah, if you have a printed text, you're not allowed to read along, because you have to hear it from a kosher Megillah. You have to hear it from a kosher Megillah. You can't hear it from a book or a chumash or whatever. So when you hear the Megillah, you have to hear it. Now what happens if you miss a word, or you got sidetracked or distracted or whatever, there's Haman, whatever you didn't hear? So the din is like this. You catch up. Let's say you missed the 10th word of the Megillah. So you right away say the 10th word, but you can't just say the 10th word while the guy went on, because then you're not reading the Megillah in order. So what you need to do is read the 10th word that you missed and quickly read the next few words until you catch up to the reader. Because up to half the Megillah, you're allowed to say by heart or from a printed text. So therefore, that's the halach. If you miss the word of the Megillah, what you need to do is actually read that word from a printed text and read it correctly, obviously, and right away quickly go catch up to the one that reads the Megillah.
You have to read from a kosher Megillah.
No, I'm saying you could read it even a few words. You could read from even from a.
On Aliyah, the Torah, you told us you have to read it yourself. Are we doing the same thing with Megillah? I know we're listening, but are we following it now?
If you have a kosher Megillah,
yes,
and you know it, then you can read along. Because otherwise, you're not going to read. You can't talk and hear at the same time. Most people can't. So you're going to be reading the Megillah, and you might be reading it differently, the word incorrectly, different than the guy reading it. Then you're not hearing and reading at the same time. So if you know how to read the Megillah, or at least the words of the Megillah, so then you could read. If you have a kosher Megillah, you could read along with the Bakarei. But if not, even if you have a kosher Megillah, the best thing halachically is just to listen. Because otherwise you might make a mistake in the words, and certain words, if you make a mistake a word that changes the meaning, it's also no good. Like I said, you have the word yoshev. Sometimes it's without a vav. Yoshev means presently sitting. If you read instead of Yoshev, Yoshav, that means past tense. So then you change the meaning of the word. Yoshev is present tense. Or like it says, Haman neifel al almita. which is present tense. Haman was falling on the bed. But in the Megillah, there's no vav. So if you read it, Haman nafal al mita, past tense, then you're not yetz to the Megillah because you read the word, and it changes the meaning of the word. Mordechai, that's just the difference in the trop, really. Or at the end of a pasuk, it's Mordechai. Or by Yasnacht, it's Mordechai. Otherwise, in the middle, it's Mordechai. I mean, all these various different changes that a person does. Okay. To be continued.